What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Couple Things
with Shawn and Andrew,
a podcast all about couples
and the things they go through.
Today, we are continuing our series about our relationship, our pregnancy, and everything in between. But before we get started,
if you haven't yet, we would be honored if you subscribe to the show and gave it a rating. It's been fun to hear your feedback, and a lot of you like our alternating schedule of interviews to just Shawn and Andrew. So we're going to keep that up for the time being, and we have a fun little run of show today. We're going to be talking about how pregnancy changes
your relationship.
Yeah.
We left off talking about kind of our journey to getting pregnant and us finding out we are pregnant with our daughter, Drew. We did not know that she was Drew. We didn't know if she was a girl or boy. It was a surprise. But we thought we'd talk about the dynamic of our relationship, because a lot of things change when you become pregnant, and it takes like an adjustment period to get used to it. It takes about 9 months. And then we'll have to talk about what happens after that, because that's a whole different journey. Yeah. But when you find out you're pregnant, it immediately shows you just how life changes between a husband and a wife.
Yeah.
I feel like the dynamic is already different when you're engaged and you're dating, because girls feel different things, guys feel different things. We have different worries and fears and thoughts and whatever. But when a kid becomes involved, now you're dealing with one partner is carrying, or in our circumstance, I was carrying the child. You were on the other side, which
I opted not to.
Yes. But it automatically splits your relationship and your dynamic as parents, and makes not for some tension, but just more things that easily become misunderstood.
So it's obviously a time of huge change, and thus an opportunity for growth. Let me start by saying I view the definition of love as your willingness to sacrifice. And so I think when
sacrifice being a good thing and not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not like giving up what you were called to do as a human, but like just putting
selfless behavior.
Exactly. Yeah. Which I think leads to long-term positive growth. Yeah. Anyway, when there's huge changes, I think that is an opportunity for growing in love, mm-hmm. or decreasing in love, right? Because now you're pregnant, you have constraints, whether that's not drinking wine, or you can't work out as much, or you're uncomfortable. And that can either separate us because I'm not serving you, or it can bring us closer together because it's like, wow, this is an opportunity for me to sacrifice. You know what I'm saying?
Couple of things. So to give a little bit of a summary with our journey in our relationship, when we went through the miscarriage, we've talked about how that put a huge tension on our relationship. We were the most separated and, not unified after that because of emotion and heartbreak and just trying to sort through that. We got through that. We came back together. We got pregnant. And then it's truly after we got pregnant that we felt that tension and separation kind of creep back in. Because I feel like up until that moment, as a couple, we had figured out how to communicate and talk in our own languages to each other about everything. Well, pregnancy is a whole new thing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the reasons why the miscarriage really put tension between us, is we didn't know how to communicate through it. Well, when we became pregnant, however you want to say that.
Became pregnant.
Yes, became pregnant. It threw another aspect, a new aspect into our relationship that we had never dealt with before to this extent, and we didn't know how to communicate. So for me, I was feeling different things. I had hormonal changes. I was I was already thinking so far ahead. So everything that I did on a daily basis, what I ate, what I drank, how much I slept, how I exercised, was all for this future child that we didn't really have yet. We didn't have Drew in the flesh, in this world. But that was so hard for you to understand because you didn't feel that. And rightfully so.
Yeah. And I do think it's worth saying that if you're pregnant, or thinking about it and there's tension already, that's normal. Don't get discouraged by that.
Absolutely.
I think switching your mentality from, oh my gosh, this is so discouraging because we can't get along ever, to, you know what, we can't get along. How can we work to get along? And like using it again as like a reason for growth. But it's okay if you're frustrated and there's tension. But
can I interject? Sorry.
Yeah.
I would equate it to, you know, when you first start dating and you're in this honeymoon phase and everything's great, and then you start to get into your relationship and you start arguing about things, and it can be a big argument or not, but you start seeing your differences and you, nitpick that you didn't do the laundry today or whatever it is. It's the same thing with pregnancy. It's new. And it's a new, I don't want to say roadblock or hurdle, but it's a new thing and dynamic within your relationship that you have to communicate through.
The other thing I think helped me when someone told me this, just to help shape my perspective, was hearing that the moment the mom finds out she's pregnant, or the soon to be mom, she is in mom mode. Like immediately, everything switches. Whereas for the male, the father, it's not really until they physically see the baby that they're like fully come to the realization that they're a parent. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
So just acknowledging the differences and the whole process, I think is really important. I also love how like nobody's ready to be a parent at the very beginning, but there is a 9-month onboarding process. Yeah. I just feel like that's something that God made happen, where it's like, that's actually, you know, the first 3 months I was like, oh my gosh, not ready to do this. And then the second 3 months I was like, okay, I could maybe happen. And then the last 3 months I was like, freaking pumped. Let's go.
Well, good. I'm glad it took you 9 months to get there. To like dive deeper into some of those topics that we had a hard time kind of like getting to or getting through, was exactly what you just said. So the second I got pregnant, I was a mom. I was excited. I was thinking about names. I was designing the nursery. I was buying baby products. I was like, we had a child. Mm-hmm. Because rightfully so, you're not like, you don't feel that soul change right away.
I got soul change.
Is that a song?
No, I just made it up.
Oh, okay. We would get in little like riffs. Tiffs. Is it riffs or is it tiffs? Whatever.
I think both work.
We would get in little arguments.
We understand what you're saying.
Because I felt like I wasn't being understood and I didn't feel like I had my teammate there. So for me being the mom, I'd be like, oh, we have to think of a name. We have to think of boys' names. And then Andrew would be like, we're not there yet. Like, we don't need to think of a name yet, which makes sense.
But that happened with names, with nursery, with buying things. I was like, girl, we got 6 months still and you want a car seat already? Like, we don't need to be spending.
And
First of all, those things are expensive.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And I remember being so hurt by that. But now looking back, because your partner isn't going through those physical changes, their physical change doesn't come until they're holding the baby. Like, that's just how it works. Mm-hmm. And so I was, in a sense, 9 months ahead of you. But with every month that went by, you would get a little bit more excited, get a little bit more like, oh, it's getting closer. And I'd be like, yeah, no, like it's happening. Mm-hmm. Like, we're going to the hospital tomorrow. We should maybe paint the nursery type thing. But I remember that being a big point of contention for us, because you thought I was jumping the gun when my life had already changed and yours was slowly getting there.
We broke this whole difference in relationship when you find out you're pregnant into 5 kind of different categories. Things change physically, things change emotionally, things change financially, things change socially, and then things change within your family as well. So it's taken us a long time to kind of jump into those 5. Yeah. We've already kind of prefaced the emotional side of things with how men and women come to the realization of parents. But to expand upon that, do you feel like part of your emotional progression or change was an increase in clinginess, or no? That was a weird
way of saying
based off.
Yes. I became very clingy when I was pregnant.
Okay.
I will admit that.
Okay.
I became clingy because I was emotional and I was hormonal and I just wanted comforted. I feared, when we had talked about this, I feared with pregnancy and with having a baby that I was going to lose you. And that sounds weird to say, but like my husband is my number one person in my life. And I feared in having another person join our family that shared your heart, I felt like I was going to lose my husband. And so I almost became more clingy because I was like, I need to cherish these moments every waking second of the day because by the time the baby comes, I won't have that anymore. That was a true fear of mine.
I feel like, I don't know about you, but there's certain things that have that effect of like where you think that it's going to be the end all of your reality as you know it. Like when my brother, who's my best friend, got married, I was like, dang, I just like lost my brother.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? But in reality, again, it's like the change is an opportunity to be like, wait, he loves this girl. I can actually find out more about my brother by learning about her and appreciating her. You felt that end of reality with me. It sounds like you felt it with Nash. You were like so scared that you weren't going to love the dog anymore because you didn't have enough room, like love quantity to share it between the dog, your husband, and a new baby. But in reality, it's cool that it's not like
your heart just grows.
And that's like it's a simple way to put it. I'm not sure if that's like the best way, but it's the correct. It's true.
It is. Well, and it's my fear. It's our fear with having another kid someday. I can't even comprehend loving another child as much as I love Drew. Like, how do people have 5 kids and love them all?
Whack. Yeah, I freaking love that little girl.
I know, but I know people do it, and I know you don't replace that love and you don't split that love. You literally, your heart just grows, which I don't know how that works, but it does.
Who was saying that? Jeremy and Addie Camp, I think, in one of our interviews.
Jeremy and Addie, your mom has told me that.
Yeah.
Because I even asked his mom, I was like, Marsha, how did you do this? Like, how you had your first son, Guy, and loved him more than anything in the world. And then you had 4 more. I was like, do you just split your time? And she said, no, your heart grows that much.
To match that, actually, I've never had this thought with my philosophical definition of love, which is willingness to sacrifice. The more, I guess, dependence you have in your life, whether that's pets, kids, wives.
Wow.
I'm kidding. No, but the more you're able to sacrifice, you know what I'm saying? So like with more kids, you have to sacrifice more, and
you have to be more selfless.
And when I see you sacrifice more for more kids, then I like appreciate you more. Yeah. And anyway, that's an interesting thought. Wow, Andrew, that's such a interesting thought. Let's talk about
Andrew language there.
Let's talk about how your physical changes as the pregnant mom changed our relationship.
Yeah. I feel like for a woman going through pregnancy with a spouse, it's a mental roller coaster. For me, I've talked about this before. I was really nervous being pregnant that it would bring back a lot of insecurities and unhealthy eating habits and eating disorders that I had previously, worked years to get over. Because I put so much emphasis on, I thought I had to look a certain way to be loved.
First of all, that needs a whole podcast in of itself, but go ahead.
I thought in being pregnant, I was going to feel more and more insecure with you. In like feeling your love and needing your love and being jealous around other women who weren't pregnant. I was really scared of that because that's kind of how I've lived so many years of my life, of just like that insecurity and jealousy. I got nervous about that. And yes, it crept in throughout pregnancy. Like the farther through pregnancy I got, the more uncomfortable I got, the larger I got. I kept feeling those insecurities a little bit, but I was really lucky to have you, who you did a very, very good job throughout my pregnancy of making me still feel beautiful with such a crazy changing body that it kind of kept those monsters at bay, if you will. But it is hard because the intimacy side of pregnancy is hard. Like, it's kind of the same.
Talking about naked time?
Yes. It's kind of the same. And well, it's a way to still feel, you know, connected to your significant other. And it felt normal, you know, for so many months, and all of a sudden things start changing and becoming more uncomfortable and difficult. And I'd say the last couple months was really difficult, and it kind of pulls you apart a little bit.
Slow times in the
Slow times in the bedroom.
Slow going. I thought you were the cutest little pregnant lady I'd ever seen.
Thank you.
You were beautiful.
How do you think our relationship changed as I changed through pregnancy?
Well, let me just say this. I am so thankful that you had like a, I guess, sense of humor about the whole thing. And you didn't take it too seriously.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what goes through the mind of a pregnant woman, but I don't know if it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be this big forever, or I'm going to have to work off the baby weight or whatever it is. But having a sense of humor and like embracing that phase, like there were sometimes we would just laugh at how
large I was.
Yeah, it was like
carrying your child was,
and I'm not
a lot.
I don't think that always in sensitive situations or with sensitive subjects like your body image, since you've had such a past with that, sense of humor is always appropriate, because it's not. It can probably sometimes worsen the issue. But fortunately, you were able to have that sense of humor enough to make it, I guess, easy for us to talk about, easy for you to open up about. Because like, if you were always super sensitive about it and like sad and emotional,
it would be difficult.
I would never want to talk about it, because like, oh my gosh, this is such a heavy conversation. You always end up crying. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so I'm glad you did that. But I felt from a dad's perspective, or to be dad, that it was really cool to see you willingly make the sacrifices of, you know, you used to work out like an insane person and you didn't, because not that you couldn't physically, but you knew that it might negatively affect the baby's development, or like, you know, drinking wine, which I feel like wasn't that hard of a sacrifice for you, because you realized how serious I was. But anyway, watching you make these handful of sacrifices, or the plethora of sacrifices, was like, it just made me proud of you. It made me love you. And I know it was hard for you, but I feel like it brought us closer together.
Well, and to tie that full circle, that goes back to how we were saying the day I got pregnant was the day I became a mom, and the husband or the partner doesn't really become a parent until that baby's there, because from the day I got pregnant, I had to make decisions for the well-being of our baby, dietary wise, with exercise, with sleep, with rest, with everything. I had to be thinking about Drew. So that's a huge difference, and it's hard to connect and to understand that as a partner, because you're not going through that.
And we've said this before, but again, the 9 months of pregnancy, 10 months, whatever you want to call it, is such a potential learning opportunity to prepare you for actually having a kid, where like the sacrifices you made during pregnancy pale in comparison to the sacrifices you make now. Yeah. But it's like, it's preparing you to like start thinking like that of, oh, hey, like, how are we going to schedule our day so that Shawn's, you know, we can do what Shawn needs to do as a mom. I don't know. It's just, I think that's cool. It's a helpful process.
And for a takeaway for spouses, a couple of things that Andrew did, and he learned and got better and better with it as we progressed through the pregnancy. Again, it's just like an understanding thing that takes a lot of communication, a lot of time. things that you did so well that made me feel loved and appreciated and like I had a teammate was, you know, joining in on birthing classes or researching things together or talking through names or going shopping or painting the nursery. But even if it feels like, oh, we don't need to be doing this now, or, oh, we don't need to leave this event early because she's tired and she's not far enough along in her prayer, whatever it is. If you just support the other person, the one who's pregnant, in those things, it just makes you feel loved and like you're a teammate.
Well, we're going to give recommendations at the end of this for kind of things we learned. But I do feel like generally view yourself as a team and embrace your role. Acknowledge that your roles are different. Embrace your role. Put your best foot forward in your role. And then also acknowledge what the other person's doing in their role as a team.
I don't know if you remember this, but we had this little tradition for probably, the last 4 months of my pregnancy. We did it every single night. I had a weird pregnancy in the sense of most pregnant women, when they become pregnant, they just like their internal body temperature skyrockets and they're just hot all the time.
Sounds terrible.
I was freezing. Do you remember this?
No.
Freezing. I could not get warm. And every night for probably the last 4 months, because I was achy and just freezing, I would take a warm bath. And it was not too hot. Don't worry. It was, my pediatrician said it was fine. But I remember
it really was like lukewarm, which is my worst nightmare. But go ahead.
But a sacrifice on your part, Andrew would take a bath with me every single night.
I don't know if that's a sacrifice, but yes, sure, I'll take it.
A lukewarm bath every night. But I remember you made me feel so loved and beautiful because for 4 months, every time we got in the bath, which you're butt naked, you're really vulnerable there, you would just tell me how beautiful I was. Until the very last day where I could barely even get in the bathtub. You'd have to help me in and out. You
know what? You are beautiful, baby.
Thank you, baby.
Okay, so we've talked about the emotional side of things. We've talked about the physical side of things. Financially, too. You really realize, like, oh my gosh, maybe I should start saving money and maybe I shouldn't buy this thing for me, whatever, shoes or a purse. Or
maybe we shouldn't buy this much stuff for our baby.
Yeah. Well, no, honestly, I was fine spending on the baby because it was like, your mind shifts like just instinctually to preparing for this little tiny baby. So, I felt like it was a big step for us. Like we realized, hey, we actually, don't have a will and we don't have all these different financial structures set in place. Like if something bad happens, freaking health insurance.
It's funny how,
my gosh, the NFL and health insurance, so I got cut a month and a half before Drew was born from the Washington football team. And
you were 1 week shy of being covered by health insurance for the rest of the year, which NFL, you knew that. You did that on purpose.
Yeah.
So we had to scramble to get health insurance in time to have Drew.
And first of all, if you're in a similar position where you knew nothing about health insurance and it seems overwhelming, it is.
And it's so expensive.
But you figure it out and like you just go through these steps. It is a maturing process where it's like, you're 25, you don't think about dying or bad things happening. It's like, oh wait, maybe I should actually prepare.
It's an interesting thing because as a couple, we're like, oh, we're fine. We don't need a will. It's fine. Whatever.
It was just never a pressing issue.
No. Well, just because you don't you don't think about that we're just kind of like, are you good? Yeah. Are you good? Yeah, we're fine. But then you talk about a kid and it's like, I need to protect this child at all costs. And you both have that mutual thought and you're like, what are we lacking?
Yeah.
We're lacking health insurance, a will, savings, like anything like that for a baby. And so all of those larger financial conversations quickly come up. With marriage, they start to come up with like, do you share a bank account? Do you share a credit card? Do you like all that? But with a baby, it brings out bigger, more adult issues, which is strange.
You honestly just start thinking longer term. And like, it's funny. My background is like, I used to have like 2 shirts in my closet. I had like a $100 a month budget, and I prided myself on a simple lifestyle. But that just changes when you have a kid. And so that's okay.
You think like long term, just like you said.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking immediately, you think, okay, what is their life going to look like in 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
Yeah. So anyway, financially, pregnancy and a child can create a lot of stress. I feel like what we did was we spent like 2 months, honestly, preparing our finances, like budgeting. That was like a huge conversation we had and / argument. And so just prepare.
And even within the budgeting process, we didn't know, nobody looks at baby products before you get pregnant or before you have a baby. I think it's smart to we looked at what formula would cost for a year. We looked at what childcare costs for a year. We looked at what, all the different options are. And we did that early enough that we felt comfortable when the time came to be like, okay, we're good to hire a babysitter how many times a week and whatever. But
you just start forming expectations. And again, it's not going to probably pan out into that exact reality of whatever you budget for. But I think just starting to think through details like that was really helpful.
Yes. And I will say to anyone who is pregnant, who's trying to get pregnant, who's getting ready to have a baby, just the best thing that ever happened to us with throughout the pregnancy was we just talked through everything. We talked through hypothetical situations. We talked about what Andrew thought and what I thought and how I saw things going and how he saw things going. And we just talked and talked and talked and worked on that communication so that when Drew came, we were on the same page. And for us, it took 9 months to kind of figure out what our life was going to look like. And then when Drew came, we kind of had to start over with different topics. But just don't be afraid to talk through it and have conversations, hear each other out. Because going back to when Andrew was like, oh, this is too early, and I felt hurt by it, give the other person the benefit of the doubt, like we always talk about, and try to hear where they're coming from. Yeah.
And I actually just did a quick Google search on how to prepare financially for a child. So if you're like walking in the dark, like we're just going to include that starter list. That's not the comprehensive, but check that out. It's in the show notes. Let's talk about something that's important, whether you're pregnant or not. And that's health.
Care of.
That's right. So Care of is a wellness brand that makes it easy to maintain your health goals with a customized vitamin plan that'll help you feel your best today and support you going forward.
I've been using Care of for the past 3 years. I used it all during postpartum, during pregnancy, during, birth, everything. It's this awesome online vitamin extravaganza magical site where you go, you take, you take a quiz for your goals, whether you're pregnant, whether you're trying to get pregnant, whether you're just trying to live a healthy life. You can say, I want thicker hair. I want to work on my memory. I want to work on my sleep. You give them all your goals in life. They compile your vitamins and supplements into one packet that you take each day, and it's a monthly subscription. So they send you a box that has just enough for that month.
Here's what I love about it. It's hassle-free. The vitamins and supplements are delivered straight to you, and they really make that goal of taking your daily vitamins and supporting your health goals really attainable.
Care of also has this new line. It's the Skin and Hair Collection. It has a combination of targeted ingredients for hair, skin, and nails. Your recommendations come in daily, individually wrapped packets that are perfect for getting back into a routine.
Another thing I love about Care of is that it's super quality. You can honestly see and taste the quality. They're very transparent about the research and sourcing behind every one of their products, with a lot of info available on their website and fun, informative content on their social pages about where they source from.
Care of's products are actually formulated with good for you, clean ingredients that are backed by science.
And they have yummy protein powders that are made with wholesome ingredients that you can recognize, things like organic cacao and pink Himalayan sea salt.
It's truly health made easy thanks to Care of's online quiz.
The magical quiz that you talked about.
Yes, it's an in-depth 5-minute online quiz that asks you questions about your diet, lifestyle, and health concerns to help address your specific wellness goals.
It's way better than the confusing vitamin aisle where it's hard to know what you need and where to start. So you just answer questions like how much sleep do you get and how often do you work out? And then you follow Care of's expert recommendations that they give you, or you can even adjust your pack anytime. What you receive is totally up to you.
So like I said, I took prenatals, I took it all the way through my pregnancy, even postpartum. I just went back on, I adjusted my quiz, and it gave me new supplements. It's also so easy to travel with. If you're gone for 5 days, you take 5 packets.
So for 50% off your first Care of order, go to takecareof.com and enter code couplethings50.
That's 50% off your first Care of order at takecareof.com with code couplethings50.
Speaking of traveling, Shawn, our go-to game. Well, first of all, we don't do well talking in cars typically.
No.
So one of us is playing a game usually while the other is driving. And our game of choice is Best Fiends.
Yes. And you guys know how competitive we are. So outside of sports, we've been really into this game.
No joke. The other morning I woke up to Shawn playing Best Fiends. Not in bed. We've been trying not to do phones in bed, but
that's what you get for challenging me to a Best Fiends face-off. It's just over here scaling the leaderboard, okay?
You're still behind me though, but it's okay. You'll catch up. It's honestly hard to put down sometimes because they always have new updates that they're rolling out with new levels or fun changes to the game based off the feedback that the fans give them.
Yes, 5,000 levels and counting. It's a casual puzzle game perfect for road trips or while you're just waiting for a coffee in the morning like I do.
Just don't blame us if you end up kind of being obsessed with this game. Actually, the game has over 100 million downloads and counting. It's free to download and has millions of 5-star reviews on the Apple App Store and Google Play. Again, they have more levels, events, and challenges added all the time. So every time you open up the app, there's going to be one more level. I honestly kind of feel like I get a little rush of adrenaline every time I beat a level. And it does help me de-stress between us recording shows or after we put Drew down. It's just kind of a nice puzzle to work on. So all that to say, it's worth trying out.
Download Best Fiends free today on the Apple App Store or Google Play.
That's friends without the R, Best Fiends. Let's get back to it. Socially, I feel like pre-pregnancy, you and I prided ourselves on being pretty socially flexible, I guess.
We hosted a ton of people, RIP COVID. We traveled literally once every other week. We would travel the world. We would go to events. We were super active. We did everything.
And we traveled mostly to see friends, and we would stay up as late as we wanted to or needed to be with friends. Mm-hmm. But it quickly became apparent that that was unrealistic because you had a new level of fatigue that you hadn't had before, discomfort. And then also, I think part of it from your side, I could be wrong, was like you want to rest up for the baby. Mm-hmm. Also, but socially, like without alcohol, to be honest with you, things like that, it was like you just are in less social situations.
It was that, and it was also like
maybe we needed a set of friends if that's the case. But go ahead.
Maybe it was that, and it was also mixed with like I was so hyper aware of the food I was putting into my body that I remember one of our first big frustrations with this and trying to communicate through it and figure it out was we actually went to California, the country music. What's it called?
Stagecoach.
Oh my gosh. I think I was 3 or 4 months pregnant. I think I was 3 months pregnant. It was earlier on. I was like 16 weeks, 4 months, whatever.
No, I think you're like about, go ahead. I was going to make a joke, but then it wasn't funny.
Okay. But it was when fatigue was really hitting me and I started to feel uncomfortable, not because of like belly pains and stuff, just because it started to like affect my body a little bit.
Your feet got tired, your back hurt, the whole thing.
And I remember at Stagecoach, you have to walk a couple miles just to get onto property, and it's just event, like by the way. You should greasy food and alcohol everywhere. And we usually love it, and we spend every waking second there. But I remember it was the first time where I had walked all the way out, a few miles and back a couple times that day. And we usually,
like a champ.
We usually like close it down. We don't leave until all the concerts are done, until it's like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock a.m. Well, it hit like 9 p.m., 8 p.m. And I was like, babe, I am so tired.
Oh, that was the one time you got hot too, but go ahead.
Oh yeah. And I was very hot.
Yeah.
But I was just exhausted. And I was like, I really want to go back and go to sleep. And you're like, babe, this isn't our usual thing. Like, and this is going to sound insensitive on your part, but it wasn't insensitive at the time. It was like, you don't have a big belly. You're not, it's not like you're getting ready to give birth. It's early on.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing to complain about, which I was offended at the time, but looking back, it's so hard to understand because you don't feel that physical change. But that was a big frustration for us because it was the first time I was frustrated at the restraint of just like physical activity. And usually I'm good at pushing through, but I knew that was the first time I was like, this isn't something to push through.
Yeah. I do feel that's a good point because I feel like that was kind of our acclimating social event where it was like we had been there before in that context. And so I had expectations of what it was going to look like. And so, when it was getting later and the headline shows were playing, I was like, we're going to stick around and have fun. And
I
you
was
weren't
like,
up for it.
I need to go to bed.
And that caused some conflict. But moving forward then too, I feel like we were both hesitant to do social things because we knew like you're on different wavelengths. Like one of you is more, like the not pregnant one is usually more up for staying up late and doing things.
But we worked really hard after that to talk through and plan through our events. So we never limited ourselves to going to events. We just got really good at saying, okay, instead of going noon to midnight, we're going to go from 9 a.m. to 12. We're going to come back and we're going to like veg until 5 p.m. We're going to eat, we're going to nap, we're going to like sit and watch Netflix, and then we'll go out at night just to kind of like, we compromised on that.
That ended up causing some conflict as well because you coming up with a rough draft schedule was like set in stone for you when I kind of am more like a caught up in the moment, like, oh wait, we just got invited to this thing and let's actually.
And I was like, babe, no.
Yeah, that wasn't part of the plan. So again, be aware that type of conflict is normal and you're just going to have to adjust and communicate through it. But
I will say though, we were very active. We traveled, we did everything. I remember it was the week I was due. We went to a concert downtown and I remember sitting next to like friends and friends of friends and whatever. And they're like, oh, when are you due? And I was like, oh, in 3 days.
But
that was, what?
That was different though. Cause it was a home stretch and we were like, all right, we're going to go out with a bang. Right. That was not the full 9 months.
I don't think you're, I think you're a little delusional. Okay. We were very active.
Until you broke your toe. A whole nother story.
Last week of pregnancy.
So this last way our relationship changed, I feel like kind of falls under the broader category of just tough conversations that you start having that you hadn't before. And so like this category was family boundaries or like roles kind of. And so I forget what our first kind of like family role conversation was. But you start thinking about, hey, so how are these little details of life going to pan out? Like, I usually work out at 7, but now we're going to have a baby. Like, like just like little things like that. How is work going to happen and et cetera. And fortunately, I feel like you were really willing to make sacrifices. And why are you smiling at me?
I'm just thinking
I'm going to stop talking.
No, it is. I have like conflicting thoughts in my head. I think we did a really, really good job at talking through every situation. We talked through who's going to get up late at night and whatever, and who's going to clean the dishes, and who's like, we tried to prepare so much. We talked through everything.
Yeah.
Which is great because it just makes you aware that there's a lot of things to talk about. But I was laughing and smirking because we did all this work. We talked through it. We wrote it out. We contacted people. We tried to be as prepared as possible, and we still weren't. And everything was still a blur, and we still had to work our way through things, and we still had to start over once Drew got here and rethink our whole plan. But I think because we had these thoughts, because we worked through it, because we talked through things while we were pregnant, and we weren't just like, oh, we'll just figure it out when the day comes. It prepared us to talk through it and work through it and communicate through it once Drew was here.
Yeah. So there's still plenty of figuring it out when the baby comes, but it's good to kind of start understanding what game you're playing. And so like, I guess to make an analogy, like, all right, you're about to have a baby. Let's figure out what the rules are. And should I not continue this analogy? But like you just start familiarizing yourself with this new different way of life. But anyway, let's start. So all that to say, some of the things that we would recommend when you're pregnant is 1, schedule in romance. I'm super glad we did this. We did this probably when you were 6 months pregnant. Thursday night date night. We've continued that since.
We never scheduled romance.
But Thursday night date night though. What are you doing?
I thought you were saying like we scheduled sex.
No, we didn't.
No. That's very unromantic.
Thursday night date night.
Yes, we did Thursday night date night from 6 months on. I mean, all the way up until the week we gave birth, including the week we came home. We did date night, and we still do it every Thursday. We did
that more with the realization of when we have a kid, this is going to be harder, so let's just start the tradition now. So I would recommend that. 2,
schedule in time to be a couple.
Yes. I would say 2, be as spontaneous as you can. I'm really glad that like we ended up taking that California trip last minute and honestly, our baby moon was kind of last minute. Little things like that we were able to form memories because we broke the pattern of what our normal everyday life during pregnancy looked like.
Well, I think just realizing that having a baby, being pregnant, it's not a confinement. You're not, not allowed to socialize. You're not allowed to travel and have a life. You should. The more you have fun, the more you love your spouse and take time for each other, the better parent you are. And I believe that in pregnancy and after pregnancy. So don't think, because you're a parent, you have to give all this up. You don't. It helps.
Yeah. On the note of traveling, I would recommend, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I would recommend taking a baby moon. I feel like when I first heard the term baby moon, I was like,
get the frick out of here.
This is a joke. But it was in some ways like the last marital trip we had. And even though it was like you were pregnant and uncomfortable and we did less than we usually would on a trip, it was very special.
It is. And that doesn't mean you have to fly to Portugal. You take a staycation to a hotel next door or wherever. Just setting aside time to just be husband and wife. Don't talk about like baby and pregnancy or whatever. Just enjoy each other.
Yeah. Which you keep prefacing what my next point is. It's great. The last recommendation I would have is it's going to be so easy to focus on just baby related things, like what I don't need to do, how excited you are, which is all really good things to be thinking about, but make sure that you don't have the baby related conversation overwhelm like the personal connection and like, hey, how was your day? And what are you enjoying doing? Things like that.
And to bring that full circle, sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
The best way I felt supported through my pregnancy was when you showed love to me, which played into my whole fear of I thought I was going to lose my husband to our child. And I think, just like Andrew was saying, if you can make each other a priority, what we said the day Drew was born, if we can constantly continue all through pregnancy and since having Drew, make each other our number one and Drew our joint number one, then it works for everyone.
Let me rephrase that. So Shawn is my number one. Drew is Shawn and I's number one.
Yes.
It's our number one. I would say it's probably more of a tendency for a female to like just be all about the baby and conversation and where her mind thinks. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage, this is a note for our second pregnancy, talk about more than just that, and don't just like say, hey, did you buy the the crib yet or whatever. Like just talk about like a human being.
And I would encourage the partner who's usually not going to be all about the baby. They're going to be more about life and living life as best they can before baby comes, to be more about the baby. It's that compromise.
Yeah, a little compromise.
So every once in a while, ask about what's an exciting product you're thinking about, or what names are you thinking about, or whatever.
Yeah. And to the dads out there, I read a book called Dude, You're Gonna Be a Dad, which is like it's like a cliche or well-known baby book for dads to read during pregnancy. Here's a quick summary, and I'll link the book too. But the first tip is prepare for fatherhood by getting informed about what the next 9 months of pregnancy are gonna look like. It was really helpful for me to like understand like, hey, first trimester, I had no idea what that meant before you're pregnant. You're probably gonna feel sick. You're going to be whatever. Mm-hmm. Like it just kind of gives you a heads up or encourages you to have a heads up about what's coming. The second point is use the second trimester to prepare for the challenging stages ahead. Yeah. That's the third trimester, which is a really hard one. And then like the actual birth. Third tip is get to know the birthing process itself as the due date draws near. The mom is typically freaked out about the whole thing if it's the first time around. And so you being able to understand what she's talking about and what she's scared about is really helpful. Fourth is... how
many are there?
Well, there's like...
We're just going through the whole book right now?
There's 5.
I just didn't know.
Jeez. Shawn, is this okay?
I don't know if we're going chapter by chapter here.
I'm just doing the key ideas that we've written down. So the fourth is... make sure that you're supporting your partner in the final weeks. And that's just, in whatever way possible. I bought you the side sleeping pillows. We bought those little like knockoff compression boots, the whole thing. And then the last one is communication, planning, and that general supportiveness is going to be crucial as you transition to the next phase. So communication, I feel like, is always important. Be honest. Speak with truth, love, and grace. We actually just read that in a book today. So that's our spiel on how our relationship changed during pregnancy. I hope in whatever way that informed you, maybe encouraged you, ideally, if you're pregnant. But it was a special time. I don't know if I'm looking forward to doing it all again, but it's hard. It's hard.
Wow.
I guess I'd have the easier side of things, though, don't I?
Yeah, which makes me think you should be really excited for it.
Yeah. I feel like we should end this podcast right now.
You're just digging a grave.
Thank you for listening. Hope you're having a great day. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to this show, give it a rating, and we'll see you next week on Couple Things.
Woo.
Peace.